think if you're able to communicate with their language,
Yeah.
and often that language is metrics.
Do you think someone can do that role that isn't a lawyer, in a legal engineer?
Yeah, I think you can. I think it's getting up to speed with technology can help you with that. And there's a lot of debate around how a junior lawyer is going to learn the law.
What has been the biggest in terms of the network?
This role came from a network.
Right, yeah.
Someone to ask when you just don't know where to start, or you just want to bounce something off someone.
Do you have a method of keeping in touch with people or checking in with, I don't know, mentors or people that you value their advice and opinion, or is it ad hoc? Hi, welcome back to Lessons I Learned in Law. This week on the show, I'm joined by Lucy Tyrrell, who's General Counsel at Wordsmith AI. Now, Wordsmith is a company that we've been partnering with on the podcast, and they sponsored our charity Burns Night this year, so immensely grateful to be working with them and partnering with them on that. But it was great to sit down with Lucy and find out what that position of general counsel within a legal tech business actually does day to day. I've been asked countless times over the last 6 months or so by lawyers who are really interested in being sort of front and centre in a business like that and developing product. So it was great to hear it, and really interesting if you're in that position and you find yourself curious about what that role looks like.
Listening to us about what are our problems and can we build solutions for it. So this is not hypothetical building. This is real life practical engineering.
So we talk about her position, how important it is for her and the function to be AI native, using the product daily. We also talk about and define what the legal engineer, this relatively new position, looks like within the profession and what impact that has going forward for the profession, how a lawyer can shape themselves into that role. So really applicable to in-house legal teams across the board. So if you're interested in AI and hearing from someone at the forefront of legal tech, then this one's for you, and I hope you enjoy. Let's dive in. A quick word from our partner and sponsor, Wordsmith. Now, in-house legal teams are done being the bottleneck. I hear it all the time on the podcast. The businesses move so fast in today's working environment that legal needs to move with it, not behind it. Like, Wordsmith is built specifically for in-house teams, not for law firms. The general counsel, the legal ops function, like the people the rest of the business normally and traditionally are said to be waiting on. So it gives your team and the AI agents a connected picture of every piece of work with the context to actually get it done. So legal stops being where things slow down and starts being what drives things forward and adds commercial value. BT, Trustpilot, Deliveroo, Skyscanner, they're already on it. So head on over to wordsmith.ai to find out a little bit more. Thanks, Lucy, for joining us. Welcome to Lessons I Learned in Law.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. It's been we've obviously been partnered with Wordsmith, so it's great to sit down and chat and find out a bit more about the business. But I've given a brief introduction. It'd be great if you could give us an overview, high level, of your role at the moment, company, team size, etc., and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Well, thanks for having me on here. And yeah, as an avid listener, especially with lots of our customers on the show, it's nice to be here.
Yeah.
So thanks for having me. I'm the general counsel at Wordsmith AI, which is an AI platform for in-house lawyers. We're backed by Index Ventures and General Catalyst, but growing very quickly.
Yeah.
And it's such an interesting place to work because obviously I'm the GC of a legal AI company, which means that I get to do the legal work, but also work on a product that does contract reviews, reports, research, and integrates basically where the business works.
Right.
And because we're built for in-house lawyers specifically, it's all about working where the business works and how can we really focus on what makes in-house lawyers easier. So as an in-house lawyer, I have a sort of product team that hangs off every word and builds product for me. So really interesting space to be working in.
That must be nice. Must be a different dynamic for legal in a business like that compared to other roles that you've held, where it's not always central, obviously, to the product.
Yeah, definitely. And when you have product requests previously, you think, I've got this a good idea for a process that we could build into legal, which would speed us up. And you have this great idea, and you know you've got amazing engineers in the business, so you take it to them, and it's just parked because obviously the roadmap for the central business is obviously taking priority. So a bit of a shift. It almost feels like being back in a law firm where the fee earner's back at the front line, and everyone, and they're brilliant because they really listen to what I'm saying, and we dog food our own product, which means that we get to use it and test it and then build around it.
Nice.
So it's very, very real for me.
Cool. And when did you join Wordsmith?
I joined in August 2024. So it feels like, in a way, it's not. I haven't been in the role very long, but actually, obviously, in AI terms, it feels like a long time, and we've done so much in that time. I was the first in the first 10 employees at Wordsmith.
Okay, right.
I think the founders identified early that they wanted that legal knowledge within the business, and joining it and building it very intentionally with the right structures. So it's grown a lot now. We're sort of a lot bigger now, and it's really good.
Good whirlwind. Because I mean, I know a lot of people I speak to, obviously, like, I think legal tech and AI is the on everyone's lips and a talking point quite rightly. But Wordsmith as a whole has, from the time you joined, it's on our radar, and then people are mentioning it when I'm in conversation. So must have been fascinating to be part of that story. How did it get on your map? How did you find out about them?
Yeah, it's one of those situations where I didn't expect to be in this role. I probably, obviously, at the start of career, didn't know what generative AI was. I think I intentionally, when I moved from private practice to my in-house role at Farfetch, that team was big enough that I had all the specialists, and it felt like a mini law firm in an organisation which was a tech business. And then I sort of went one more step to a startup environment, and I don't think that was on my plan.
Right.
But actually, I think sometimes that's how careers unfold, don't they?
Yeah.
Not necessarily how you think.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think when I first heard about AI and what it might do, I had the same sort of caution about, I'm not sure that will really work with legal work, and sounds a bit scary. But then I saw what it could do and thought, actually, that's amazing. It's going to transform the industry. And so I'm either scared of it, or I kind of jump in and try to be a part of it, learn about it, and in a kind of small way try to shape and make sure that it's done kind of responsibly. So Ross actually spoke to me about the opportunity.
Okay.
Before I joined, a few months before, and said that he'd gone over to the West Coast and seen it pre-ChatGPT in his tech role as our CEO, and he's a lawyer, he's a qualified lawyer, and then annoyingly went off and learnt to code and became the CTO and CPO, and very impressive because he sees the two worlds, so he understands the technology and also can see the real value in law, and he's very driven to improve legal tech, always has been. And so, his passion and, the belief that we're going to do this and now's the time, and do you want to come and do it? I guess it's one of those situations where you think
it's infectious, interesting, and they don't come up, like those types of opportunities just don't come up where you've got an opportunity to shape it, I guess, in a way as well at that early stage. And I think for a career in legal, like everyone's talking about, how do you future-proof every career, not just lawyers, but it's a pretty good bet, being at the cutting edge of it and contributing to it at the front end is gonna be impactful for the rest of the career. So I think it's great what you're doing, and eager to learn a bit more about it. So we'll jump into lesson 1, if you could start with that and share that with us, please.
So my first lesson is think like the business, and I say that. And it sort of probably transitioned from when I was first applying for training contracts. Okay. And everyone talked about commercial awareness. And I was thinking, I'm not sure what commercial awareness is. You'd kind of read about it and think, if I read the newspapers and have a look. Then I'll try and figure out what this is. Where you can't really just learn it. It's something you've got from your jobs before, where you do jobs that you think aren't that important. But doing a sales role when you're 16 puts you in quite good stead, because you have to understand those concepts. And I think as my career has gone on, I've realised the importance of really truly understanding what the business does, so that when you can give the legal advice, it's not in isolation and that rolls out to the business. Because if you don't understand the drivers, the reason why, then the advice can't be given really in a vacuum.
Right.
And I think I was very fortunate that I worked with some amazing partners in law firms who always told us to give commercial advice and make sure you just give the answer and make sure you don't sit on the fence. But then I think as I've transitioned through my role, it's become even more obvious. I think in the in-house team, you just need to understand why you're doing it. Like if you're buying a company, what's the value of that company and how's it going to fit in, and where are the synergies? Because then that will focus what due diligence you do, for example, and the integration. And does it really matter about that if we're not going to keep that part of the business? That sort of thing. I think it's completely irrelevant if you don't. And I think that's really come through in this role, because we're moving really quickly. You have to make decisions, and you can't just can't take your time over your advice. And actually, it doesn't mean not thinking about the legal risk, but it just means you can be more focused and prioritise if you take the time. So I always encourage people that I work with in my teams to understand the business rationale first, and then look at the legal problem, but then loop back and think like the business. And I think if you're able to communicate with their language, and often that language is metrics and where's the business trying to get to, and if you can align with that, then you're truly business partnering, as opposed to just
supporting.
Exactly.
So when it must, with the pace of change at Wordsmith and the growth, and I guess like listening to clients and reiterating the product, how do you keep across it all, and how does the business share that information if there's a change of direction or a change? Like, how do you ensure as a lawyer within that company that you're across it all as much as you can be?
Exactly. I think firstly you have to be willing to adapt to that change, the pivots that happen. Instead of, I think humans like control, and lawyers are kind of a step further and like to be able to do that. But if you're able to understand that change is not a bad thing, and you have to make decisions to pivot, that's fine. And I think it's about being intentional about who you're speaking to in the business, and so it's getting that information in the first place. So are you speaking to the right people? Are you ahead of the roadmap? Are you understanding what problems there might be? Are you listening to your customers, truly listening to your customers? So making those decisions, but then when you talk about communicating them down onto the team, I think probably over-communicating. I think I've been on the receiving end where I think leadership teams think, because they're talking about it a lot, they're close to it, but you actually have to be quite intentional about the delivery of that down. But if you give your team context of the why, then that makes it much easier for them to give relevant advice, but also prioritise their workload as well, because a lot of the time they're being pulled in loads of different directions. But if they know this is where we're headed, then that makes it a lot easier for them to prioritise their workload. Right.
Yeah, and if they've got that why, I suppose they can interpret the decisions, like where they're not communicated outright, and can interpret.
Yeah, exactly, and would question it. And we're lucky at Wordsmith. We have end of week, which again has always been very, very intentional from the start. That it's in person. We're all there. You take time to work out what's been shipped that week, what we've been working on, what direction we're going. So that's an opportunity to see different parts of the business as well. So
when does that happen? Well, obviously end of week, but is it like a Friday afternoon or what?
It's a Friday afternoon, which is also quite good, and really good to kind of have an end point to the week as well. I think it gets everybody together, and with the sort of team works incredibly hard. but it's nice to kind of take a moment at the end of the week to see what everyone's been working on and get to the end of the sprints if you're an engineer and see what's coming up.
Yeah, cool. So you started your career out in private practice. Just give us a sort of background of your career. And you obviously mentioned Farfetch, but it would be good if you could share that info.
Yeah, of course. So I started as a M&A corporate lawyer in private practice, and I stayed doing that for almost 10 years, and I loved it. I would say I'm kind of a deal junkie.
Right.
I love the buzz of it. I really enjoyed working with loads of different businesses, from really big businesses, regulated businesses, to a lot of tech companies and entrepreneurs on the sell side, buy side. And what I found was I loved, how is the business making money? What's important? Why are they doing this transaction? So you got to do lots of the business side of the work as well and understand that.
Yeah.
And what I found was I really enjoyed working for businesses that had repeat work, and when you did lots of transactions for them, because you got to know them more,
right,
and you got to understand what was happening with the businesses that you'd worked with or the deals you'd done.
Yeah.
I was really lucky. I got great exposure as a junior lawyer, and then as I progressed through that, I was working on lots of different areas of corporate law. So I would do some listed work as well as private M&A work, which at the time I used to want to specialise and know where my lane was.
Right, yeah.
But now I'm in-house, I'm so glad that I did do both.
Yeah. Where was that? Which firm was that?
DAC Beechcroft.
Okay.
Yeah, in the city.
And did you have, so obviously doing that repeat work or work for a repeat client, maybe started giving you was that what got the wheel turning, that in-house and being embedded in a business?
Yeah, so I did a secondment at Unilever, which was amazing, not just because of the Ben & Jerry's ice cream at the time. Yeah, exactly. But amazing in-house team, and loved working with them, learnt a lot, and just loved seeing how the business was working and how legal could support that. So I think I got an insight into doing it. But I think it was as I said, working for the same clients and understanding how the business was working. And I found it very frustrating that I would spend so much time speaking to those clients for such an intense period of time, get to know them really well, and then you send them the Bible and that's it. And I'm desperate to ask them, how did it go? What happened with X, Y, and Z? And get that feedback on that. And also I think at the outset of a transaction, because obviously you're chargeable, so why do you want an external counsel on the call when you're doing your tax planning and you're doing heads of terms necessarily? So I actually loved it when I was in-house and I could be involved in discussions early, and then also be involved in integration. I mean, it swings and roundabouts. Now I feel like I live with the decisions that I make. I can't just put them in a Bible and post them away. They come back to
they don't come back.
Exactly. So sometimes I love it, sometimes I don't.
But it's true, like you said, about being billable, because you're encouraged to be curious and get to know your clients. But if it's like they don't, as you said, they don't want to speak to you if they're paying for your time and your learning time. Yeah. Cool. And with more like then moving into Farfetch and getting to know that business, that was your first move in house, and sort of on the lesson and understanding the commercials. When you go into a company, a new business, who do you think legal's key relationships sit with that can give you that information in terms of the commercial objectives? Like now you've obviously got sight to the CEO and the founder of the business, but in a larger organisation.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, Farfetch was listed and 5,000 employees, a huge organisation. And I actually joined in 2020, so I joined in lockdown.
Right.
Which was interesting. It made it harder. I didn't realise at the time. I think looking back, that was really actually more difficult than I thought. And so I had to quickly, you have to get underneath the business, and it's a complicated business. It's global. There's different teams. The legal team's big. So for me, it was getting to know my stakeholders really well. Corporate development team, finance team, treasury, the commercial team, working really closely with the partnerships team. And again, I think it's going to the company-wide, all hands, and just throwing yourself into the business. I think that's the benefit of in-house. If you take the time to learn about the business, that's only going to be a good thing. I think if you're obviously you try and get to know your clients when you're advising them, but obviously that only has a limited application. Whereas any knowledge you get, whether that's the future intentions or what they're doing, is really valuable. So yeah, I was lucky when we obviously had lots of like public information there that I could look at, but mostly it's the conversations and getting to know the stakeholders really.
Just interrupting today's show to tell you a little bit about who's behind this podcast. So I'm founder of Heriot Brown, and we're a recruitment business that focuses purely on recruiting lawyers and compliance professionals into in-house legal teams. Our job is simple. We connect great legal teams with fantastic lawyers who are looking to build interesting and fulfilling in-house legal careers. This podcast grew out of conversations that we were already having with top general counsels and chief legal officers around the globe. So if you're interested in hearing about the market, what your next move might look like, or if you're interested in being connecting and selling to top lawyers in-house, then feel free to reach out.
Well, we'll move on to lesson 2.
Yeah, actually, that's a good segue into my lesson 2, which
excellent.
is
Not pre-planned, actually.
no, exactly, it wasn't. But my lesson 2 is around your network, and that's internally and externally. Again, when you are in a business, I think so much of it is who you know as opposed to what you know. I think when you go into an in-house role, you're having to advise on a wider area of law and non-legal things, and you can't possibly know everything. And actually, it's really helpful to know when you don't know something and be honest about that, because there's somebody who will be able to help you with that, and that's fine. It's knowing the right people to go to and who you need to be speaking to and getting that wider context for. So that's in a business, it's taking the time to have those conversations with people, which actually isn't even about work stuff. It's just getting to know what's driving people. And I always think it's understanding what's keeping them up at night, what are they worried about, and then you can align with that and help them get to where they want to get to. So I think internally, getting to know the business and understanding who's who. And I've been really lucky over the years to have a really strong external network as well. I've been so fortunate to have worked with amazing partners in the law firm who've just taken the time really to give back. It's not been a formal structure, but taking the time to explain things. And then even in-house, again, the teams that I worked with, amazing team. That then people naturally, people go and do different things, but making sure that I keep in touch with them has been really valuable. And the communities, I think that Emma and the team have set up are really, really valuable.
They're really important to find that the people that you connect with. How do you do you have a method of keeping in touch with people or checking in with I don't know, mentors or people that you value their advice and opinion, or is it ad hoc? How do you?
Yeah, I'd like to say that there's some methodology. I think it's if there's something specific. I think it's if I find that there's something that I'm doing that will resonate with someone, or just an event that you think someone else might want to go to, or an article or something that might be relevant to them. Sometimes that can be a good excuse to kind of reach out. And then I do keep in touch with lots of... Wherever I've worked, I've got a really good cohort of contacts there that I do catch up with them regularly, which is really hard because we've been pulled in loads of different directions and work's busy. But I've done that.
Life gets busy, and it's. But I think those people, for door openers in careers, I think it's sometimes a missed opportunity for lawyers to really nurture the relationships and make sure that you're on. You're there. They know of you and remember you. I think it's impactful.
And actually, when I was at law firm, I set up City Professionals Network, which is a terrible name. Not catchy at all. No, but that's obviously what I could come up with. I'm not creative.
ChatGPT didn't exist at the time
exactly.
either.
So that's what I came up with, and I thought why aren't more people doing this? Because the firm were giving me budget to have a few drinks and some snacks with my peers.
Yeah.
So we made it so that it was non-partner, so it wasn't senior people.
Okay.
And I guess I know I did law at university, so I know lots of lawyers.
Yeah.
I know a lot of accountants and corporate finance people.
Yeah.
So I invited them along to the firm. The firm thought this was great because I
Right.
got people in. And I thought that it wasn't useful at all. And I couldn't really understand why the firm was so keen to give me money to spend on
Right.
beer and wine. But it turned out that over time, that network everyone went off to do different things, and
Yeah.
the way that the accountancy business model works means that people go off into different
Yeah,
organisations.
referrals, yeah, absolutely.
And so, honestly, something that I did just because I wanted to have a nice time in an evening just
Yeah. Yeah.
turned out to be,
That's the best.
Yeah, exactly. So, and we spend so much time at work, and I think I don't see it as like this is my job and this is. But if you can have it fluid and you meet interesting people and they're going to do interesting things. So
Yeah.
I think it's just actually not resisting it as something to do. I just enjoy it. I enjoy speaking to people and getting to know people. So
Yeah, our job obviously requires it, but it's like it's kind of why I do what we do, because it's so like you either spend time in people's company that either drain your energy or give you energy, and it's like I think it's quite easy to know when that's the case, and I think if you don't enjoy that, then there's certain aspects of a job that don't quite work. But I think for lawyers and law firms, not every firm is caters for that or would encourage it or look highly on the associates for going above and beyond and doing that, or reward that type of work, if you know what I mean, like with the billable hours targets being what they are. But yeah, I think it sounds like a great network. How much of that, because you were sporting background and hockey you played, how much of that do you feel is from being in a club and having that background?
Yeah, it sounds really cliche, but the more as my career has moved on, I look back at sport, and I remember early on with careers advice, or you're doing your CV for the first time, and someone says, well, make sure you put your sports on there. Thinking, what?
It's just something I do.
Job.
Yeah.
Really, I just have a nice time doing it. I honestly didn't understand why I needed to put that on there, but I did what I was told, and actually there are so many parallels. I know you have a sports background as well.
Yeah.
And it's so many things. It's kind of the resilience. It's turning up on a Tuesday and a Thursday at 8 p.m. in the pouring rain in the UK in the winter. And you have to be there, and you have to, even if you don't want to be doing what you're doing, you put your effort in and don't want to let your team down. And it's all about it's a competitive situation, but getting the best out of that team, even though not everybody's going to be starting on the pitch, means that you have to understand what drives everybody different. People are driven by different things. People will respond differently to. Some people need a bit more confidence. Some people need to be told quite directly what to do or not to do on a pitch, for example.
Yeah.
So there's communication, there's understanding how you're going to get the best out of people, motivating people even though you know that they're not going to be in the first starting 11.
Yeah.
And not being picked and having to kind of just
deal with it and
get on with it. So I've got like amazing group of friends. I always found it really helpful to switch off. I think it's one of the only times where you've got a ball flying at your head, you got to be thinking about that as opposed to what's going on at work. Yeah. But I definitely found that I've drawn a lot from it, and I had sort of leadership responsibility in captaining teams, which again, you have to have conversations, which is telling your friends that they're not going to be selected and they're playing in a different team, and that's hard. And I was quite young when I was having to have those conversations, and I tried to do it by almost skirting around the issue a few times by giving them like, oh, it's this because of this reason, and I soon learned like you just have to be completely honest and do it directly. Which I learned, which then I've actually used that later on. So, I definitely see the benefits of sport.
Yeah. I think even from the networking, like you touched on it, like the group of friends it gives you, and like keeping in touch with them and going on to different things. For me, that's almost as much as what it's given me as well further down. I wasn't good enough to captain, but yeah, like keeping in touch with people, and the social aspect of it, I think is great as well.
They were the first ones there when it was, beer and wine at my City Professionals
yeah.
network.
That's good. Yeah,
Warm wine in a
it's the same with
law
burn
firm
supper,
reception.
Yeah. Cool. All right, we're gonna. Sorry, actually, I'll ask. What has been the biggest, in terms of the network that you have? What's been the biggest career win that you've had from like your network that you could directly attribute to your network?
I mean, arguably, this role came from a network.
Right. Yeah. That's well.
Yeah, and I'm doing it, and I don't. Yeah, and I find often that is the case with. I find when I'm speaking to other people, from that perspective, and otherwise probably not like one other than that defining moment. But I think generally it's just someone to ask when you just don't know where to start, or you just want to bounce something off someone. Or even when you're making those decisions. When I was considering this role, I loved the previous one. This was more jumping to an opportunity, but bouncing that off people who I really trusted their views on was like really reassuring, because you can speak to your friends and family and they might work in similar areas, but what you want is someone who understands the industry and understands you and what's driving you. So I found that really valuable.
Yeah. Nice.
If you've got into the dizzy heights of managing a legal team or managing people, then you'll no doubt have experienced one of the following things. A brilliant lawyer struggling to take feedback, or someone on the edge of burnout, or even the challenge of growing your team or finding a backfill for someone that's left whilst continuing to do your own job. The manager's room is the place for you to lean into a peer-to-peer network of other managers that are also lawyers, to learn from their experience and to share your own ideas. So to find out more, head over to the link in the show notes below, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.
Cool. Well, we'll jump back into lessons, and we'll go to lesson number 3.
Yeah, lesson number 3 is being curious. I think, and there's always, and I think again, lawyers naturally are curious. Whether that's because you're being told you have to do CPD for a certain amount of time, but you need to ask the questions to be able to give the advice.
Yeah.
But it's be curious, ask the questions while you're doing things. Look at new things that are coming along. Like you have to stay up to date with things anyway. I think having that mindset helps, because I think especially in house where things change, and instead of worrying about that change, it's sort of embracing it. I don't know. Maybe this is sort of part of the corporate might pass where you don't know what might crop up, and usually there's a solution for it. But if you're curious and you're able to embrace that, then I think it stands you in good stead. And it sort of links to my previous point around technology. I think actually if you just embrace it and find out as much as you can about it, then you're just going to be in a better position, I think.
Yeah. How do you test for, because I think it's a really important skill or attribute that someone has rather than a skill, like being curious, but how do you assess that in an interview, or like, I don't know, a relationship that you have within your organisation? How do you pinpoint that this person's curious?
Yeah, I think it's the questions that you're asking that are not just the ones that you'd expect to answer. And so in the space that we're in, it's having that awareness of what's going on more generally with AI, which is there's so much information out there. So I think it's not necessarily asking a question about how you are curious, but asking the questions that demonstrate that you are. And also I think the questions that I receive as well are also really insightful. I think when someone's asking you a really good question about, well, actually I've been thinking about this and that doesn't make sense, or that's always a good sign.
Yeah. So that legal and product and legal engineers, and I know that's a position within Wordsmith, relatively, I guess, new function or job description that you see more and more of nowadays. What does it mean to you? What does it mean inside of Wordsmith, and what would someone in that position? Sorry, three questions here. What would they be doing, like day to day?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I find it fascinating because the legal engineer is a term that's bandied around quite a lot, and I don't think it necessarily has to be a role in itself either. I think everybody should be tapping into their inner legal engineer.
Right.
That's from CLOs, GCs, down to new lawyers coming into the industry, and I think it's about being able to use technology to deliver the legal advice that you're giving. So it's sort of marrying up legal concepts with the technology. And we made a conscious decision early on to have lawyers coming into the role, and then we would train them up on the technical side. But you need to be able to bridge the gap or speak the language. And if you're just using a product and you put a few words in, then the output's not going to be very good. Whereas if you understand how to prompt and how to get the most out of your playbooks, but also the workflows piece. So it's not just about the detail of the contracts and the reports, how to identify, an indemnity in a contract that doesn't necessarily say indemnity. It's like that sort of input that you need to put into the product, but also workflows. So okay, well, we've got this issue. We've got to be able to react quickly. How can we do that in the most efficient way, an automated way? And that just helps with consistency and capacity, and means that you don't have to take a materiality call on, okay, we're not going to look at contracts of a certain size. You can at least have the AI looking at that. So I think to your point around what does that actually look like, it really depends on whether you're doing kind of global product or specific things, but it's definitely... some of the stuff you do is really, really legal. You go into the semantics of something, you unpick something, and you realise that the AI you look at the reasoning and you can understand that, oh yeah, they used that word and therefore, of course, it thought this. But us as humans, we interpret that in a slightly different way.
Okay.
And lawyers see that. That's what they're very good at doing, the detail as well. And I actually find it fascinating working with lawyers and engineers.
Right.
They are so similar in so many ways, and yet so different in certain ways.
Right.
So the attention to detail, you put lawyers and they can spot a missing, missing comma in a line of code. But the way in which we've been trained is very different. So we often have a situation where the legal engineers are working very closely with our software engineers. And the way that engineers work in tech, it's you build, you ship, you iterate. They want feedback. You make mistakes. You ship, you iterate.
Okay.
With lawyers, who everything has to be perfect.
First
time it's got to go out, and so there's this. You have to sort of meet in the middle between. It's not perfect, and that's fine because it's okay, and we'll iterate and we'll keep testing it and. We can go again, and it's actually just really interesting to see them work together. Yeah,
must be a bit of a learning curve for people coming from practice or from legal background. And do you think someone could do that role that isn't a lawyer in a legal engineer position? You have people. Yeah,
I think. I think you can. I think it's getting up to speed with the legal principles, and I do think that. The technology can help you with that. And there's a lot of debate around how a junior lawyer is going to learn the law. I mean, I remember showing my age, going down to the library and getting a book out and then coming back up and looking at that. That just is not a very good use of my time. And now we have it at our fingertips. We already have a certain amount of information at our fingertips. Yeah. It's taking that another step forward. So you're always going to have people who cut corners and just use the technology and are a bit lazy with it. Yeah. But I think if you're a person who's able to use the technology, interrogate it, drill down further, ask more questions, get more sources, critique it, then what an amazing opportunity to upskill. And it should be a bit more standardised as opposed to relying on really good training partners and formulaic. Yeah. And what contracts you review or what seats you do, quite frankly.
Yeah, which is part chance, right? So, nice. Well, thank you for explaining. Because I think it's something that is definitely on the candidates that we speak to is more on their radar than I'd say it has been previously. And I think in-house teams, whether they call it legal ops or engineers or whatever size of the business, I think, as you say, it's something that's important for everyone to be turning their hand to and jumping into.
And I think actually I just encourage everybody to, I think a lot of people are using it anyway, but just jump in. And again, I think it's often lawyers want to have perfection. So I'll do the courses and I'll do probably an exam, which I like doing.
Yeah.
And then once I've done it, then I feel like I can do it. Whereas actually what I encourage people is to go for the more engineer approach, which is, okay, try it. Have a go, do something that you're familiar with and just test it out. Yeah. And then you'll soon it'll just become part of what you're doing. So I think everyone can develop those skills anyway, and you just get to understand the technology more if you use it.
Yeah, cool.
We do have our academy as well, which is great for sharing use cases. So I just find it frustrating when you're asked to come up with use cases, but you don't know what the technology is capable of. So it's this chicken and egg argument. And we've tried to. I love listening to customers and lawyers and the networks around what amazing things they're building with AI. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of good stuff going on. I think it's every legal, you're in a vacuum in legal, or we are, but like recruitment, everything it touches everything. There's ways to be operationally efficient, and you're either skeptic or you have to embrace as much as possible across everything. So. All right, we're going to segue into Hot or Not, a feature that we've introduced into the podcast. So I'm going to give you a statement or a phrase or a cliche or maybe a cliche in my opinion of of something within the legal profession or within working, like professional life, and want you to rate it as either something that's hot in your opinion or not, and a statement or a reason as to why, the rationale.
Let's do it.
So, number one, KPIs for measuring a legal team's success. Hot.
It's to do with speaking the business's language.
Right.
The more I think about it, the more it's being able to demonstrate your value as a legal team. Like often, if you're doing just pure legal work. It's not like sales where you're directly linked to, we've brought in this much revenue. Often it's, well, I saved you from a piece of litigation that was X amount. It's very difficult to prove that. Whereas if you're able to speak the language and demonstrate that, it's received well. And I think actually it's how the business operates elsewhere. So getting on board with that I think is important.
Okay. How do you track and report that from a legal?
We have systems in place, and unsurprisingly, Wordsmith's linked up to those types of analytics. So for us, it's contract reviews, it's queries we get, and so it's more easy for us because we've built the systems around it.
Right.
But we are helping more and more customers do that. So I think it's really important.
Yeah. Cool. Good answer. Stakeholder management being described as a soft skill.
Yeah, hot.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's a newly hot thing.
Yeah.
I think it's just important to be able to influence and persuade and talk to them in a way that resonates with them. And that's different depending on who the stakeholder is.
Right.
So it's being very intentional about what you're trying to get out of it, making sure you're prepared, and it's having those conversations and getting to know them, not at the time when you really need to speak to them that's super urgent. It's having the conversations to truly understand them and build trust. Yeah. And then when you need to go to them, it's you pick up the phone and you have just a direct conversation with them.
Yeah. So is it something do you feel people can intentionally improve that?
I think so. I don't think you have it on or not. I think you can definitely work on those skills and get feedback from people. And I think too often we don't have a direct conversation with someone about how you want to work with them. So I do try to do that. Do you prefer meeting? When do you prefer having meetings? Do you prefer this style of communicating? And how do you want me to present documents? Is it in slides or is it in email? Or a few bullet points in certain
Yeah.
cases, a voice note, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So yeah, I think you can, we'll definitely work on it.
Cool. Legal being asked to move faster without being involved earlier in the process.
It's not hot, so not, but it's real. I mean, that's the struggle of in-house teams, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's, we want more from you, move quickly, don't hold things up, don't, manage the risk. Sometimes it feels like an impossible task because you obviously want the same as the business. You know that you need to work fast, but you do need to do some work behind the scenes. And I think sometimes because if you give a really commercial answer, which is actually quite short to the point, then people don't actually understand how much work's gone into getting to that answer, because you still have to do the work and analyse the risk. So, and again, I think like if you meet with your stakeholders and truly understand their roadmap, you can at least try to, you can kind of try to see what's coming and preempt problems as they come. Yeah. Or integrate AI into your workflows and speed you up.
There's the answer. This will be a conflict of interest here. We need more headcount as a default solution of a legal team.
Not. Yeah. I don't think. Yeah, you won't like that answer. But also, I'm definitely not of the view that because you have AI, you don't need headcount at all. I think, if anything, you need people who are using the AI in the right way and have the skills to set it up, monitor it, and it relies on the input that you're giving it. So I think headcount's still really important, but it's thinking smart. So it's making sure you've got the right people as well. Yeah. So whether that's making sure you've got someone from legal ops and identifying the roles that you truly need in the business, like being strategic, being able to zoom out, and then working around that. So it's like the right kind of headcount. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Communities that are focused purely on the legal industry.
Yeah, I think hot.
Yeah.
I think there's a real demand for it. I know you've set up some brilliant communities that are very active and people get a lot out of it. And I think, especially in-house, I think when you're in a law firm, you forget that you've just got this whole firm of specialists. You can go and find someone that can do something. And in-house can be a really lonely place sometimes. So especially if I've gone from a bigger team to a very small team, and actually, when we do have extra lawyers in the office, but they're doing product work. But it's really valuable. I think that community.
Okay, well, we'll wrap up, hot or not, at that point. Thank you for taking part. We will move on to the final question that I've been asking people lately. And I'll ask you for book and podcast recommendations, but we'll skip to asking if Wordsmith or yourself, if you were on the receiving end of General Counsel of the Year or Legal Team of the Year, and you went to an awards to get that, and they asked you what's your walk-on song for receiving the award, what would you choose?
A walk-on song. I mean, I'm a big Fleetwood Mac fan.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know which one it would be. Drive. I mean, that's quite epic, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Build up, like F1.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, that'd be a good one. It's a bit of a long starter. You need a big walk.
Big audience. That's what it'll be. A big awards ceremony. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, we'll go with that then. Yeah, the baseline kicking in.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time coming in, and really nice to chat through and hear more about what's going on at Wordsmith and the role, which I think is very is a unique position. If anyone was interested in finding out more about what someone in that early stage AI business, whether it's legal related or otherwise, can they reach out and find out been on that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always happy to speak to people about that and one of the points around your network, and I've been very fortunate to have great mentors and people that I've worked with, so I'm always happy to have conversations about people. I think it's important to do the same. We also have a legal engineering framework which is very practical, and it's addressed at different levels of seniority, and to give practical examples. So that's maybe we can put some links in the show notes.
Yeah, definitely.
The Academy is a resource which is free to use and should be kind of videos on prompting and use cases to bring it to life, as opposed to me just talking about the theoretical things, but also just anyone at the team. Always here. But thank you so much for having me, and for all you do in the communities. It's been great, and I really enjoyed.
Thanks for helping out.
Great customers on the
there's been a few,
and
right? That's not been deliberate, but there has been.
Great lawyers on the podcast. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thanks for listening, and look forward to tonight at Burns Night, and we'll see you later.
It'll be fun.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Lessons I Learned in Law. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, or you've taken something from any of the insights shared by today's guest, then please give the show a follow or a subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And please head over to the Lessons I Learned in Law LinkedIn page and give us a follow. It really does help the podcast travel and get out to the wider legal community, and can help shape someone's legal career. Thank you.